Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Focus on the Seller, where we focus on questions that sellers like you may have. Tonight's question is, so if you're an investor and you're trying to buy houses at rock bottom prices, how can you help me? It's a great question, isn't it? So first off, I'm Joey. I'm with Focus Property Solutions. We're a local real estate investment company located right here in Calhoun, Georgia. We buy houses and mobile homes in Whitfield County, Murray County, Gordon County, and Bartow County. We've been doing this since 2010, and y'all, we enjoy what we do. Most importantly, we enjoy getting out to meet with people like you. So, before we get into it too much, I want to ask y'all a question. Give me a thumbs up if last week Facebook did something weird to you. So, like literally, last week when we were doing this Facebook Live, there was some kind of glitch in the matrix or something like that. And actually, how long were we on? Was it 2 days straight or was it just 1 day straight? We were, according to the Facebook Live thing, as it's counting in the corner, it said we were online for almost 2 days straight. I promise you, I didn't talk that long. These things are only go for about 20 minutes. So give me a thumbs up if anything weird happened to you like that. The second thing is, go ahead and use the comment field down below us and tell me where you're watching this from. What I'd really like to do is I'd like to be able to communicate with you and connect with you even after this goes off, I guess, live. And if you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to blow it up down there and ask me anything. What we're going to do, though, is whenever y'all do ask us questions, Ashley's over here manning the computer. She's going to tell me what they are at the end, because something that I noticed in the last couple episodes is I was getting scattered-brained whenever the questions would come in. So ask the question. If Ashley can answer it directly, she'll type in an answer. If not, she'll say, hey, Joey, at the end of this, and let me know what's going on. Is that good? Give me a thumbs up if that's good. All right, once again, I got my notes over here because I don't want to mess you up. Ask about the questions, got that. Okay, so let's go back to the original question. If we're investors and we're trying to buy houses at rock bottom prices, right? You ever had to get your tongue tied? So if we're investors and we're trying to buy houses at rock bottom prices, how can we help you as a seller out? This is a fantastic question. Let me tell you where the question came from. So we've been out door knocking all the pre-foreclosures in Whitfield County, Gordon County, and Bartow County in the last 2 weeks. We've met all kinds of different people. We've seen all kinds of different situations. And one house that we knocked on in particular asked this very same question. They said, you know, if you're wanting to do this, how can you help us out? And I thought, that's a very valid question, because I think people have a misconception as to what an investor does. So whenever I go to sit down with a seller, I always tell them my job is not necessarily to buy houses. My job is to solve real estate problems. And so that's something that Focus Property Solutions does that may be a little bit different than what you're familiar with. Whenever we sit down with you to find out how we can help, we're truly there to help. We will give you lots of options. We're going to ask you some strange questions as we're giving you those options because we want to find out how we can help you the best. But at the end of it, I will give you a scenario. It may include me, it may not include me. I hope it does, but by the same token, if you're in a better situation when we get through and it didn't include me, then that's good. And what I'm hoping for is if that happens, then you'll tell somebody about us and hopefully we'll get some business out of that because I don't get to feed my babies for free. So it is what it is. But what I thought I would do tonight to be able to show you some ways that we have helped people in the past is go through a couple of deals where we met with some sellers that had impossible situations, it felt like, and we were able to help them out. Okay, if y'all are good with that, give me a thumbs up. So, first one that I want to talk about was actually a pre-foreclosure. So we were out door knocking, and it was in November, and we were out looking at the houses. We were actually running just a little bit late, and we came up on this house, and it was a beautiful house. And I went knocked on the door. Nobody was there, and so we pulled out our card, and I wrote on there, "Hey, I love your house. I'd like to buy it from you. Please call." I stuck the card inside the door and went home. Well, that was Tuesday before Thanksgiving. Tuesday night, the seller called me and said, "Hey, man, I'd really like to sell my house. I'm in foreclosure. You know I'm in foreclosure. I don't know what to do." The next day, I went over and I met with him. Y'all, I really, really like this seller. So, in previous episodes, we talked about how whenever you are in either just delinquent or if you're in active foreclosure, the worst case scenario you can do is stick your head in the dirt. This guy was not doing that. He'd been working with the bank trying to do a modification, which was something that we talked about. He'd been going all over the place trying to figure out a way to make this thing work. He'd been living in the house. He'd been taking care of the house for the most part to the best of his ability. But what happened is he came up on a hard time. He got hurt at work and wound up being out of work for a while. These kinds of things can happen to anybody. And in the process of this coming along, matter of fact, we've got a YouTube video. If y'all want to check that out, give Ashley a thumbs up and tell us, hey, I'd like to see that video if y'all want to see how we interviewed that seller once we got the deal taken care of. But he felt real beat up by not only the bank, but he had other bill collectors calling him, and he felt like people were just being ugly to him. What he said about us was whenever we sat down with him and talked to him, it made him feel like a person. And I got to tell you, that to me spoke volumes, because we're not after houses. We always say houses don't matter, people matter. And that's really a philosophy that we have. And so for him to be able to reach out to us and say, hey, you know what, y'all were different than anybody we'd been around, and we appreciated that, I think that solidified the deal. But let me tell you about what we did. So this guy is in foreclosure. So we're at the end of November. We're at Thanksgiving. Foreclosure is going to be, it turned out to be the second week of December. Most of the time it's the first week of whatever month it is, but it just so happened that the first Tuesday of the month fell in the second week of December. And he was behind on his payments. He didn't have money to move, and he didn't have the time that he needed to be able to move. We sat down with him and said, hey, look, this is what we can do. You owe quite a bit on the house. We can't buy it for cash. But what we can do is, I want y'all to hear what I just said. We can't buy it for cash. All the deals that we do, we will give you a cash offer, but there's sometimes flat out, we can't buy it for cash. This was one of those situations. I told him, I can't buy your house for cash. You owe too much for us to be able to do that. But what I can do is, I can buy your house from you and leave your mortgage in place after the sale and make payments on it until we fix it up and sell it. He said, what's that called? I said, that's called a subject to deal. I said, I've never heard of one of those before. And so we sat down and we talked about how a subject to deal works. We talked about the benefits to him. We talked about the benefits to us. So the benefits to him was simple. One, it was going to keep him from going into foreclosure. Now, what does that do? That saves his credit big time. Okay, so he had those delinquent payments, but all of a sudden we stopped foreclosure. That's not going on his credit. The next thing that was a benefit to him was they didn't have money to move. Okay, he didn't have the money to be able to catch up the payments. There was repairs that were going to be needed to be done on the house in order to sell it. They just couldn't do that. Truthfully, he said, I'm ready to be done. And so I said, okay, what if we got you some money to be able to move? Would that help out? He said, yeah. He said, but the other thing is, I haven't had any money this whole time. We've got a tight rental market right now. I don't know where I'm going to go. I really need some time to be able to find a place. I said, okay. Well, how long do you think it would take to be able to find a place? And he named however long it was. I think it was, I don't remember. It was either January 1st or February 1st, one of the two. I was like, well, okay, well, how about this? What if we buy the house, subject to, like I told you, we'll buy the house, we will leave your mortgage in place after the sale, and then we'll make payments on the house until then. And he said, we can do that. And I said, yes, we can do that. Then the other thing that we will do is we'll get you some money to move. That way y'all can get into your new house, because I know you've got all these different things going on. You need to be able to get into a new house. And he said, man, that'd be great. And I said, and then if you promise to be out by the time that you say you'll be out, we'll let you stay that long. Would that help out? He said, yeah, man, that'd be great. I really want y'all to watch that video. It made my heart sing. And the reason is because houses don't matter, people matter. And for the seller to be sitting there talking to us and saying the wonderful things that he said about us was great. But let's go back to our original question. If we're trying to buy houses at rock bottom, did y'all hear what I told him? I couldn't buy his house for cash because the rock bottom price didn't make sense for either one of us. For one, it wouldn't pay off his mortgage. For two, it wasn't going to help him out. And whenever we sit down with a seller, we want to move them into a better position, not a worse position. So that didn't make sense. And I don't think all investors are trying to get rock bottom prices. I think investors are just trying to make enough money to be able to support themselves and to feed their families. So we weren't able to do it that way, but we were able to give him a lot of benefits. So I'm going to write those benefits down on the thing, or on the whiteboard. So the whole question was, if we're trying to buy houses at rock bottom prices, how can we help him out? So deal number one, we're going to go through a couple of different deals today. All right, so he was in pre-foreclosure. What did he need? He needed this to stop. He'd like to be able to get his credit back. He needed money to be able to move. He'd been out of work for a while. Now let me say this too, I forgot to mention this. He'd already found a job and started working again, but because he'd gotten so far behind, the bank said, you have to pay us all the money you owe us, or you can't make a single payment. And not only messed up him being able to stay in the house, but it also messed up his loan modification. So he was unable to make this deal happen. He also didn't have any savings since he'd been out of work for so long, so he needed some money to be able to pay for first month's rent at the new place he was going to, the deposit for deposits on all the utilities and things like that. So he needed some money to be able to move. We got that for him. We'll call that moving money. And then finally, the biggest thing that we were able to help him with, so these are actually some pretty cool things. We stopped foreclosure, we got his credit back, because there's something that happens on a subject to deal. Not only did we stop the foreclosure, but then we started making payments on the loan that he had in place, his mortgage. We started making payments on that on his behalf. What that did was that bolstered his credit score. So all of a sudden, this thing on his credit score that was saying, hey, he's doing bad, all of a sudden said, hey, guess what? He's doing good. He's making payments. So that helped out on his credit too. We got him some moving money, but the biggest thing, the thing that he said that was the best help for him was we gave him some time, okay? He got from when we closed the house all the way up to the end of January and the end of February. That was like 2 or 3 months there. That was a big deal. Now, I don't think he used all of that because he really did. He was wanting to get out and to be able to get into a new place because the other thing that he really, really wanted was to be finished. He wanted finality. He wanted out of this. And that was something else we were able to give him because once he felt that, hey, this was done, that he even told me this. He said, man, I was so worried to death that whenever the foreclosure happened, that the sheriff was going to show up at my house the next day and throw us out on the street. When I was able to tell him that's not what's going to happen, you could just see the stress melt away. Or yeah, Ashley, let's post that video in this. So it's on my personal YouTube, and it's called How We Help a Seller Out. So Ashley's going to get that in there. She's going to try to post that in there. If she can't get it while this is live, then we'll do it later. But I want to make sure that's in there for y'all so that y'all can see that because it's really, really cool. We got him the time that he needed, and we also got him the finality we needed. But the other thing was that, and you'll hear him say it, we treated him like a person. And that's our philosophy. Once again, houses don't matter, people matter. Okay? And we're in a people business. We're not in a house business. Houses just happen to be the conduit in which we do what we do. So that's deal number one. That's how we found the deal. That was how somebody was in a situation that seemed like they weren't going to be able to get out of it. Even though it was a house that was not at rock bottom prices, that's how we were able to help. So that's just one scenario, right? The next scenario that I want to talk to you about happened, and it was not pre-foreclosure. Okay, so this person wasn't about to lose their house. This was a different type scenario. So let me take a drink of water real quick. Apologize for this. When I get excited, I get dry mouth. Give me a thumbs up if that ever happens to you. So, this house was a different scenario. This one not only had financial struggles with it, it had a lot of emotional struggles with it. Now, don't get me wrong. When you go through foreclosure, there's a lot of emotion that goes along with that. There's a lot of fear. There's all kinds of different things. This house was different. This house was an inherited house. And the way that they inherited the house was Mommy and Stepdaddy lived in the house. So Mommy and Daddy lived in the house. One parent passed away, and then the second parent passed away. And this house was very close to their home, their personal home. And so not only were they the caretakers of their parents whenever they were in their elder years, but they also were charged with trying to keep up the house in the meantime. So they did what they were supposed to. They went and they probated the will. They got everything in the state. They had everything set up so that the siblings could split everything. But as it turned out, none of the siblings had any money. And the house needed some repairs in order to become sellable. You know, that they had been living in it the way that it was, but in order to get it to where you could sell it on the open market, there were some things that were going to be that needed to be done. Nobody had the money to be able to do that. So the house sat vacant. And when I say it sat vacant for close to 4 years. That's a long time for a house to be not taken care of. And when I say not taken care of, I'm talking about houses need to be lived in. If you let a house sit off to itself, it will deteriorate faster with nobody living in it than if you put somebody in it. Pipes need to run. Water heaters need to do what they do. ACs need to come on. Electrical switches need to go up and down. Things like that. The other thing that happens is air comes in and out. It is allowed to breathe. Things like that. But that didn't happen for 4 years. Okay? So our sellers now are older. They've been going around cutting the grass for the last 4 years, trying to do the best that they could do. But they're starting to get older and can't maintain the property. The next thing that happened was hoodlums broke into the house. Can I believe that? There was like nothing of real monetary value inside the house. The only things that were in there were sentimental things. You know, old magazines, old chairs, things like that that only family members would have a purpose for. But hoodlums broke in there, they took stuff. And so finally, our sellers were at a crossroad. I can't deal with this anymore. I can't see how let my mom's and dad's house go down like this is a good thing, but I can't fix it. And so somehow they got our phone number, okay? They called us up and we sat down. We went over to go look at the house. At the time we got to the house, now not only had the things been broken into and pipes hadn't been running, we had to replumb the house, but the roof started leaking. And when I say it started leaking, when you walked into the living room, there's puddles in the floor and the sheetrock up above was deteriorated and discolored. The house is getting bad. We got to do something, and we got to do something quick. Now, before they called us, they had went and got an appraiser to come out and take a look at the property. And the appraiser came up with what they thought was the fair value of the house. So if y'all go and look at one of our other Facebook Lives, we talk about the difference between after repair value and fair market value. So they had a fair market value, and they told us what it was. And after we ran the numbers, we sat down with them and we're like, look, we can't pay the fair market value. I'm straight up. When we buy a house, we're buying it for one of two reasons. We're either going to fix it up and resell it, or we're going to rent it out. This house wasn't one that we could fix up to rent out at a reasonable rate. It wasn't going to happen. And so our only option was that we would fix it up and resell it. But in order to do that, we have to buy at a discount, because that's how we make a profit. I want you to think about, going to the grocery store. When they buy their can of beans, they got to buy the can of beans for a discount so that when they sell it to you, they make a profit and keep the lights on. Same thing with buying houses. We have to be able to buy it at a little bit of a discount in order to be able to make a profit and be able to keep our lights on. So we explained that to them, and they understood. Now, you got to remember, I'm watching these people that have been good sons and daughters. They have done what they were supposed to. They were taking care of mom and dad. They've been trying to take care of the house, and it just got away from them. And so I said, I tell you what, we can offer you more if you partner with us. I said, partner with us? What do you mean? I said, I can give you cash right now. And I told them the amount I could give them cash. I was like, or I can give you more if you'll wait until after we sell the house to get paid. The reason is because this is already a tight deal for us. There's a big rehab that's got to be done on this one, and there's a lot of unknowns on this. And so we're more comfortable because the risk is less if we can pay you when we get through. We know we're going to have X amount of money go out, but if something big happens, we still got that in reserve to be able to make it happen. And they said, well, how are you going to do that? And I said, well, what we'll do is we'll go to the attorney's office, and the attorney will sign the house over to us. Actually, you will sign the house over to us at the attorney's office. And then they're going to make a piece of paper up that's called a security deed. And what that means is it goes to the courthouse, and in the courthouse it says that Joey and Focus Property Solutions cannot sell this house until we pay you off. And they said, kind of like what happens whenever you get a loan from the bank? I said, exactly like what happens when you get a loan at the bank. I said, okay, so you can't sell the house without paying us off. I said, yes, ma'am, that's correct. Yes, sir, that's correct. And they said, well, okay, you know what? Let's do that. I said, okay, great. So we went and we did the deal. Now, I got to thinking about it, and I talked to Ashley about it, and I was like, they have done a really, really good job with this. They've done a really, really good job with this. We think the house is going to sell at X. I don't even remember what it was right now. What if we sell for more than that? And Ashley said, well, that'd be great, I was like, yeah, it would be great. But something that'd be really cool if we did? She said, what? And I said, what if we share that with the people we're buying it from? Because two things. One, They should get paid for how much they've worked on this house out there cutting their grass and taking care of mom and dad for this long. But the other thing is they're partnering with us. Maybe we should share in the profits with them. She said, I like that idea. That's a good idea. People matter. Houses don't matter. So here's what we did. We structured the deal such that we bought the house from them for a particular price. We'll call it X. So this is going to be deal number 2. We bought the house for X dollars. I don't remember what it was. But we didn't pay them until after we sold the house. What that allowed us to do was that allowed us to pay more for the house, because now in a deal that was very tight for us, remember how we talked about bottom dollar? This wasn't rock bottom. But what we could do was we could offer more, because by paying at the end, it is a more secure deal for us. Anytime we flip a house, we run into all kinds of different things. I mean, we have seen things from crazy termite damage to septic systems that didn't decide to explode until the end of the rehab. We've had ACs go bad that we didn't know about. We had some really, really interesting stuff go on that cost a lot of money. So whenever we come in to flip a house, it's a pretty risky deal. But because they partnered with us, we were able to pay more than if we just came up with a cash deal. Now, what else happened with this is remember how seller number 2 needed some time? Seller number 1 needed some time. Seller number 2 needed some time too, because they needed to be able to clean out the house. They had a whole lot of mom and dad's stuff still in the house, and they needed to be able to move that over and sort through it and all that stuff. So what we did was we agreed on a specific amount of time that they could go and clean the house out. Matter of fact, I think we showed up and helped just a little bit, because there were some big objects that they needed help moving. So for them, what we did was we gave them more money, because we were waiting till the end. We gave them time to clean the house out. And then the thing that they didn't know, that they weren't expecting, is we said, we've got a minimal acceptable profit that we've got to make. We do this on every deal. It's in our calculation. If we make anything over that amount, we would like to split it with you 50-50, since you're partnering with us, and because you took such good care of your mom and dad, and because you've been doing such a good job with the house. Do you think that will be a benefit to you? And I got to tell you, they lit up on us. And I don't mean lit up in a bad way. I'm talking about they were smiling. You could see, I'm telling y'all wrong. They started crying on us. And it wasn't it was a happy cry, because they felt comfortable with this. This was a way for us to be able to make a good deal for them and a good deal for us. It was secure for us, but y'all, it was an emotional weight lifted off of them. It was definitely a financial weight lifted off of them, because what they were about to see was mom and daddy's house was about to be taken care of, and they felt the emotional pressure of, I can't do that. We took that off of them. So we gave them more money, we gave them time, we gave them half of the upside over our acceptable profit, and then, just to add a little cherry to the top, when we got through, we walked them through the house and let them see what kind of rehab we did on it, and they smiled and they loved it. So that's about time. I had one more just in case, but maybe we'll talk about it on a later date. Investors aren't about always buying a house at rock bottom prices. We have to make a profit so that we can take care of our family. But by the same token, we want to be able to make sure that we take care of people, because people matter, not houses matter. So at this time, I'm going to ask Ashley, do we have any questions? Do we have any questions pop up in the field?
Not that I couldn't answer.
Okay, so Ashley answered all the questions. Y'all do me a favor. If this was beneficial to you, do me a favor, go ahead and share it. If you think of a question later on, come down and type it in. We're going to be monitoring this thing. We want to see how we can help you out the best. But yeah, do that. Like it, share it, let us know how we can help. I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great night.